We're here at the Nebraska State FFA Convention. Just got done with session number 5, and I have the keynote speaker, Miriam Hoffman, with me. Miriam, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here, Hannah. So I grew up on a small diversified crop and livestock farm in north central Illinois. Grew up with a love for agriculture and got the privilege to serve as a national officer a couple years ago. I was the Eastern Region Vice President and got to come to Nebraska's convention last year to do some workshops, and they invited me back this year to give a keynote, so it's been fun.
I was going to say, you're no stranger to FFA, so tell me a little bit about what you were involved in FFA and how you became national officer.
Yeah, so it was definitely a long journey. I was one of those students that when I first walked into an ag class my freshman year, my ag teacher probably thought I couldn't speak. I was so quiet. I was very shy. I didn't know, what FFA was really going to have for me. I saw my sister as the chapter president, and I remember thinking to myself, I could never give a speech in front of 30 people. But then gradually my sister and my ag teacher just really encouraged me to keep just doing the next thing. So I did some public speaking events. I was terrified, but I started to realize it could be fun. And then also just realized that being a leader is not just about talking in front of everyone, but it's about listening to others. And so that was really what kind of propelled my leadership philosophy, and was fortunate to get to serve.
So there's all different types of leadership roles in FFA, and you got to serve as a national officer, as you mentioned, which is the highest leadership role that you can have as a student. Tell me a little bit about your national officer candidate, or not. Tell me a little bit about your national officer year.
Yeah, so it was one of the years where we were just coming out of the pandemic. So about the first half of the year, most of my interactions with FFA members was on Zoom. And that was definitely different than what I had seen past officers do. But my team also got very close because we spent more time together. So the 6 of us lived in apartments for the first half of the year, really, and hardly left. And so we learned a lot about each other. We learned a lot about what it means to be a really good teammate. And then also learned about how resilient FFA members really were, and to remember that, yes, as national officers, we didn't get to do things that normally national officers would get to do, but FFA members across the country were going through the same things. And so to get to be a chance to be a light in that difficult time was definitely a privilege. But yeah, really, truly just taught us so much about the diversity of FFA members, but also all the things that we have in common that we may or may not realize that we have in common.
You didn't have to worry about doing a session over Zoom today because you were the keynote speaker for session number 5. What was the message that you brought to students this morning?
Yeah, so my message is something that I've needed to hear recently, and that's usually what I end up speaking about, because it's about the idea of belonging. And I found myself in places where I felt like I didn't belong, and then I put the responsibility on other people to make me feel like I belong. But what I've realized is that belonging is really a lot more about just showing up for other people. And when we do that, then that feeling of belonging will come along with it.
Miriam Hoffman, session number 5 keynote speaker here at the Nebraska State FFA Convention.